And there's one book that all of you should read in terms of artistic side of comics. This deals with what you want out of the comic versus you want to tell the story, or the picture is going to be more like a vehicle for that. Do you want to mess around and see what you can do with the comics medium? There's different.
Train your perfectionism out of you.
yeah, and there's one where it's just like, I want to get my message to the masses. And it's Scott McCloud's Making Comics. Deals with a whole lot of this. There's actually a copy that you can browse through up at that media library on 2nd floor.
Is it really?
Is he the one that does Control-Alt-Delete?
No,
no. Do not confuse the two, please.
Let's not start bad-mouthing cartoonists.
I just said don't confuse the two. They're completely different.
The way you said it, dude.
Scott McCloud, though, is singular in sort of what he does.
Scott McCloud, he has done a lot on interpretation comics. He's been around a lot longer. He was started in Well, he was doing comic books in the 90s, but he actually started doing a lot of deconstructing comic books. He did another one, Understanding Comics, and generally just
Understanding, reinventing, and making comics.
It's reinventing is the one that people have big disagreements with.
But making comics, if you want to just get better at the foundations of how to make a comic, I cannot recommend that book enough. It's called Making Comics. It's by Scott McCloud. It is.
Everyone should read it.
I realized when I was writing my notes for this, it's just like, I should just tell them to read this book. It's going to be a lot of scribbling time.
Yeah.
And you can find them anywhere. I mean, it's never going to go out of print.
It's also really good for writing. If you want to write comics, then read Making Comics.
And if you need to collaborate, you both need to read it, because then you're speaking the same language.
Yeah.
That solves a lot of marital arguments if you're actually speaking the same language.
I just interested when you walk in. Read his book. What? Scott says I'm right. Slave.
I went to a portfolio review one time, and someone was like, blah, 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 this advice, that. And you know that part in Making Comics? And I'm like, what? And they're like, you haven't read Scott McCloud? I'm like, no, who's Scott McCloud? And he just shuts my portfolio. Just go read Scott McCloud.
See, that's I would have punched that person in the mouth. The problem with Scott McCloud, and I do like him, is there are people who say this is how you're supposed to do it always, and this is the only. There are ways that aren't the Scott McCloud way.
Right.
Don't become those people who reads his books and go, Scott McCloud says we must do it his way. No, there are other ways.
Making Comics was much more. Is very broad in its.
It is, but there are people who read anything Scott McCloud says and this is it. This is the Bible. No, there are countless other ways.
But the thing that I really like about that book actually is it gives you exercises that expand how you're going to think about it, and how you're going to approach it. It gives you more tools.
It is. I'm not bad. It's a phenomenal book. It's just one of those. Don't become the person who thinks there's only one way to do your comic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There are countless ways. I can sit in a room with 20 other cartoonists that I know, and none of us do it the exact same way.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, you do what? Or, I didn't think about that. That would have made things so much easier.
And again, another good reason to have actually a community, because then you'll be sitting here laboring over something, and someone come along, you could just do this, and that'll save you 2 hours, right? And you go, oh.
And then you just swear it under your breath.
This is so helpful, goddamn.
I do want to bring up the fact that, the panel may be called the artistic side, but the artistic, that also includes writing, and writing, even if you don't even have words in your comic, you are still writing, and they're intertwined. What's better, writing or art? We had a podcast like this basically to point out it's dumb to separate them.
It is, but I will say most people are more forgiving of art that's inferior to the writing. If the writing is kind of inferior, but the art's amazing, most people there's a comic, I can't remember the name of it. It wasn't around very long. And the people who drew it was just amazing, DC and image level art, shit story, horrible dialogue. You're like, wow, this is someone, it feels like Axe Cop, but trying to be serious. Where hey, I got a 4-year-old writing my crime drama. It was really bad. I think that you can get away with it more, but it's nice to have. But they feed into each other.
I feel like the way we've been approaching it is the art is the hook.
Yeah.
When someone comes to our webpage, the first thing they look at is, does the art suck? But the story, or the art is the bait, and the writing is the hook.
Yeah.
The art is what will get people to go, oh, this looks like it's not awful. Okay, I'll click through the archive some, and then they're reading, and then if they find the words engaging, that's when that's a reader that's going to stick around.
Yeah, but there are plenty of say, webcomics out there, particularly because, there's no bar of entry, where you got what is really not very refined art, to put it very politely, but for some reason they're incredibly popular because whatever the writing that people really like, or the jokes that are being said. Somebody once, I forget who said it, and they were quoting somebody else, they forgot who it said, but basically it's like some of these other ones where the art isn't all that great, but they're so accessible. They're like the greasy potato chips. Everyone's just gonna nom 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 nom. But then you get something like Lackadaisy Cats, which is like this premier potato chip,
Beautiful.
and it's like $50 for like one chip. You know, it's like
I don't even call Lackadaisy. That's like a sirloin steak.
Yeah, that's a high end.
Yeah, that's high end. You know, it's like that. So you got these easy to consume stuff, and there's
something to be said for those.
Yeah,
I mean,
there is. And that's.
We got someone on the panel here who focuses on art that is fast and cute and incomplex, but really appealing. And then it goes with these hilarious stories.
Hilarious, horrible stories.
So bad.
Before we get just ramble on, if anybody has any more questions, do feel free to raise your hands because
Otherwise
we will
won't
call
shut
on
up.
you.
Yeah.
My question is, how do you stay motivated to keep up with your stories?
I have bills.
How do we keep ourselves motivated? Keep up with.
Turn off Tumblr.
Turn off Messenger, anything.
I do the opposite. I actually go on Tumblr when I'm lagging because I'm like, I'm tired and art is stupid and I don't want to look at it anymore. And then I go on Tumblr where all I follow is artists that are better than me. And I go like, art is amazing! And I need to make beautiful, beautiful things!
All the art crushes.
Yeah, I follow people who I admire and they keep me inspired. Both online and off. I follow people who I inspire and then that makes me re-energized about art again. And if there's nothing good on Tumblr, then I'll pull out my old art history books and
Watch Avengers again.
Or
Well, Avengers.
that's looking at something pretty for an entirely separate reason.
There is something you said though about keeping your instant messenger off. We have to get something done. You know what will distract you, and you need to remove those distractions. But if I'm in a situation where either the art's just not working out or the writing, I just can't get where I want to go, after I give it enough effort, I put it aside and I either pick something else up I need to work on because I have other things I can do. And sometimes I'll get halfway through that other comic I need to do for next week and realize, oh, yeah, because it just distracts me enough. And if that doesn't work, I'll find order stores I can mail out or just other errands, and that will help me.
I think also there's something to be said for sort of drawing out the blockage.
Yes.
Like if you're really stuck on you're drawing and it's just turning out crappy every single time, a lot of people go, oh, well, I'll just not draw.
No.
Don't do that, because you have to, draw until the, blockage is gone.
It's like physical therapy. Like, if you hurt your leg, it gets better by you working on walking more.
Now, you might not want to work on the pages that you're going to put in front of the internet if you can avoid it. Maybe go sketch something else for a while, or something a little easier for a bit, but you can't not draw.
And this is all of what my comic is about. I ran this other, it's into a picture book, but the thing of it was I was taking so damn long to get anything done because I was like, no, that sucks. That doesn't look anything like what it does in my head. And so I just sat down and said, okay, I'm just going to draw stuff that, like the stories where folks are always laughing at the end, or going, those are fun too. But I worked out a deal with myself because even then, I mean, there's a lot of slog involved where it's just kind of like, oh god, I'm only on panel 4 and it's due in, oh god, half an hour, which is like half of my comics. But what I work out with myself is if I'm not. Like I will say, okay, but you gotta sit down and you gotta put your pencil to the paper and you gotta try drawing something. And generally, if you noodle around enough, especially this is where I get into the spiral cheapo notebooks. If you get something going, then it's like, oh, I could do this. And before you know it, then you kind of kickstart. I mean, I can't say as far as. If you're sitting and it's like, I need to draw, that's a good compromise for yourself. Even if you don't get anything noteworthy done, it's just, okay, if I sit down and put the pencil to paper and do anything.
The world won't end if you draw something shitty.
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up.
How many people have just sat down with pen and paper at the desk and you're just like, I want to draw something. What should I draw?
Why do you think I got a writer?
You should draw a pineapple. No, I don't want to. One thing I found out, because I've been on hiatus so many freaking times, and it's because it's like you get discouraged and or you don't have time, or you have other projects. I have multiple projects, which is stupid of me, but still, I found the best way for getting back into doing my comic, and this works a lot. Partly, read what you have in your comic, because you'll probably forget it if you're on hiatus long enough. Like, reread. Oh,
even if you're not on hiatus, you should reread it. Like, I have to reread my archive once every year or two, because I've been doing it long enough now, like, especially like I'm doing a storyline and bringing an old character back, I had to go find out what I left the character's situation.
Because your readers remember.
Oh God! And they will.
know.
It's giving me the Milholland. I couldn't help but note from continuity errors.
They remember.
I've actually restarted a plot point that I already did because it was too long. I was like, wait a minute, she already talked about that. Okay, but here I also found like I'm on Twitter with like a bunch of cartoonist friends and everything like that, and sometimes I'm like, hey, I'm gonna draw sketches. Tell me if you want me to sketch your character. This way, it's non-committal to your own sort of schedule. It's not your thing, and you just said sketches, so it can be whatever. You're not doing fancy ink art unless you feel inspired to. And then when I was just rolling off doing a bunch of other people's characters, because it's not like I have to judge myself, my things too much. I'm just having some fun, and it's like a loosen up exercise. And sometimes I have gone the extra mile, and I felt motivated. Ooh, I really like this. I'm gonna ink this. I like this ink. I'm gonna color this. And so that can really get you. I find that helps me a lot.
Oh, I wanted to say something else about motivation. Know who your accountability buddies are. There are people who you can hang out with, and when you hang out with them, you want to draw, and maybe you even can draw while they're hanging out with you.
Or they guilt you into drawing by staying around you.
Or they punch you in the arm until you get back to drawing.
This is getting really violent suddenly. Or they just hold a gun to your chest.
The Black Cat Collective will sometimes have accountability buddy sessions where it's, okay, we're all going to get together in this room. And when you're in the room, everyone is accountable for making sure everyone else is working on their art. We're going to unplug the internet, and we're going to sit around, and if you catch someone on their cell phone or something, you're supposed to harass them until they
look like panel 5.
I'm pretty sure that's Tumblr on your phone.
Research!
Picture.
Yeah. Is that a 3DS I see under the table?
I'm doing a gaming comic now. Goodbye.
Speaking of gaming, though, that's one good failsafe in terms of like this is like a subset. But if you happen to be a Pokemon nerd, there are like 800 of them right now. If you need to draw something, there are random generators out there online. I can track down names for some if you like, but just go and like I'm going to draw. Okay, Shedinja.
Is that a real name?
Yes.
Yes. Spirit of
You
adult
kids, goddamn. I also take sketchbooks with me everywhere I go. So when I go to a restaurant where I have to go to a doctor's appointment, I always have it. So it's also for me nervous energy. It helps me calm down.
Yeah, I do it because my job is very, well, not so much this one, but a lot of my others are very, very people-driven.
Yeah.
And if you have a very, very people-driven, active kind of job, it's really kind of nice to go home. Now I'm not going to speak to anyone. I'm just going to sit here and draw.
Should we say some more questions? It's,
Yeah, does anybody have any more questions?
What are you guys' thoughts on things like Matt Eamon's the oatmeal panel? He doesn't update regularly. In fact, he's actually done a comic about how he just draws when he's inspired, but yeah, he's got a
I think he's got enough readership. It doesn't matter. He also has social media. He knows how to work very well.
Yeah.
And he's in a situation where he's doing. Everyone has something different that's right for them.
Yeah.
And what he's doing, he has found exactly what his audience wants. They're waiting. They know where to get it and how often to get it. Same with Side Night and Happiness, Randall Monroe, XKCD. It's perfect.
Because you will be responsible to your readers.
Yeah.
And your readers will not be the same readers as anybody else's readers.
Your readers won't be the same ones as one year they are the next.
Yeah.
I should also mention that everyone you mentioned are sort of like microcosms of how did that happen? And you can't plan for that at all. So you can't go in thinking, oh, I'm going to do something totally like the oatmeal. Oh, I'm going to do something totally like Penny Arcade.
You have to make your comic.
Yeah.
Don't make somebody else's comic.
And people will call you out for that crap. And I've seen comments like, wow, this is questionable content. I know, because I'm friends with Jeff. You're ripping him off. I seen some
I liked
girls.
this better when it was called blank.
Yeah, I saw someone try to like, hey, would you get my comic a read? I'm like, yeah, I really enjoy Kate Beaton's Heart of a Vagrant. I just don't really like your rehash of it. But I didn't say it that way, but it's obvious. You cannot recreate someone else's success.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw somebody that tried to make a comic. It was called ASDF. It's spelled in lower cases, and it used stick figures. Guess who they were ripping off?
Oh. SBCD. Ashback.
Ah.
And they thought that they were so clever.
Honest.
No one's gonna notice!
No, actually, I looked at their website. They stripped that website. It was the exact same everything.
In the early days when I was doing comics, that was actually really common that someone would see, oh, you're doing well. And down to, like, if you're a cartoonist prone to getting art, other cartoonists, people would try to mimic that too. And it does not work out well for you.
You have to do your comic.
Gamer Comics making their blog the homepage because we really want to know what you're talking about. Just because Penny Arcade does it.
Hey, you're not Penny Arcade.
They're a gamer site with the comic. That's what it is.
But they're evolving way beyond that.
They're far more.
We're getting into business again.
Yeah, but it's important because it's like you lack artistic integrity if you start looking at things like that. I would argue bring it back around. Other questions? Someone? Well,
environment designs, like how do you guys decide where the stories take place and how much effort do you put into the background?
I spend way more time on the background than it. So much stippling, you guys. So much stippling. So many pens have died under my hand.
I hate when I do a comic and the background's a super detailed thing. No one gives a shit.
Oh
Then
no, they never
like,
care.
They're in the library. And like, rectangles from both. That's the best background you've ever done.
Yeah, we have all like these huge sweeping landscapes. And like right now I have to do a whole village this really is a village in the Middle East where it's carved into like
Ash.
there's ash spires and people have carved homes. She's my wife too.
She's the one that took it out of India, okay? I was putting this in India.
Oh yeah, jungles, that's better.
yeah, all the leaves and their foliage and shrubbery.
Rocks.
I know. We actually have a list of things that Lisa's not allowed to put in the comic anymore. I will tell you some of this list: grass, rocks, trees, feet, hands,
Crocodiles.
goats, crocodiles,
Grass.
grass again,
Come on,
grass
the
a
grass
third
looks
time.
awesome.
Lava.
And again, it depends on what kind of story you're telling. For the story I'm telling, it's a sweeping fantasy epic. It kind of needs big, fancy, dramatic background.
Well, clearly you're not. It's not about lawn care.
And then again, going off of that, how did you research, like, what
Google image search.
There you go. That's
Every
it.
time,
That's the secret.
And Pinterest. Pinterest is your friend if you have a lot of references that you need. Do people know what Pinterest is?
Yeah.
Tumblr, but very, very
It
specific.
is not Tumblr. It's nothing
It's
like
for
Tumblr.
craft people, a lot of crafts.
But it's really good where you go on websites and you go pin it, and then it'll put it on a specific reference image board. So I have a reference board called Godseeker Reference Pictures, and it's just all the pictures that I found on the internet that I'm going to need for Godseeker later, and it stores them for me on not my computer. So if my house burns down, I have all my references, and I can't lose my files in weird places, and I don't have to organize anything.
So if you're in a situation where your comic isn't as sweeping as that, like they're always in this one location, my first year I did this a lot, and I know Dave Little Shortpack has done this a lot, where he just draws, and actually for his comic Comic Age, I have certain places they're always going to be. Stock background that you have, and you can just put it in, and that saves a lot of time.
And some of this should also be in your style Bible. Background should be in your style Bible as much as the people should be. If you know a place is important, design it ahead of time.
Dave Willis. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, photo references, not going
gonna
to go against that, because sometimes you will not find references for anything but, like, putting a page over your face and go, like, you need to have a friend and just grab a piece of paper and...
I have so many pictures of my friends in like boxer shorts in weird positions. Because no one wears shirts in our comics. So it's like I just have all these strange pictures of my friends.
Some of your friends drowned me once.
Yeah, we had to go warn the lifeguard at the pool, like, okay, look, we're gonna drown her. But it's for reference pictures. She's fine. Honey, tell her that you're fine. She's fine. So just don't worry about the splashing and the drowning. It's fine. It's okay.
She fell down the stairs earlier, too. No, it's like Dave Willis's Coming of Age is set at a college that he used to go to, so he went back to his college and got a whole bunch of reference pictures. Also, I just watched the Square, Paul
Taylor.
He goes around Minneapolis and takes reference shots for his background, so that's an incredibly useful thing. Otherwise, unless you're very familiar with urban street corners and such like that, you're probably going to draw really, really boring buildings with squares.
Yeah, if you can use references, it really helps to keep it from getting generic.
And speaking of references, there's a couple of Android apps that I found that are pretty cool. There's a pose tool that you can manipulate like a mannequin, and there's like this program, one called Handy. Now that one's awesome. It's only like $2, but it's like different hand gestures, and you can move it around and change where the lights are. So you're not like trying to like look into the whole Handy $2 when it's totally dark. It's awesome, and you don't have to sit there and try to take it.
Yeah, it's true, because hands are a pain in the ass.
Well, I need that app because, okay, so I try and take reference pictures of my hands, but I have freakish hands. I have these really giant hands with really, really thin fingers. I have yaoi hands. And then my wife here, honey, hold up your hands. Those are not even hands, they're paws. So everyone in my comic either has these giant yaoi hands or these tiny little pudgy fingers. So, have some friends with normal proportions.
Since my characters aren't exactly the most, they're very cartoonish.
Yeah.
I actually used old Disney style guides to learn how to draw. They drew hands in positioning.
Oh, those Disney style guides are fantastic.
Disney and Warner Brothers, their old hands. Because hands are very difficult to do. Yeah.
I had that page torn out and folded up in my book bag, so.
Love it.
Oh, another question.
Speaking of which, are there any other books you would recommend reading? Like one of the most influential books I've read was How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way.
Oh, we all had that. I read that as a kid.
I didn't.
Oh, well, you're just a freak.
No, I'm a girl.
I got my copy from a girl.
I didn't have anything to do with superheroes until
the Avengers.
Until the movies
I'll just
started.
stave everybody off right now. If you ever see a How to Draw manga anywhere,
Some of those are good.
No, there's one brand that's
there's
good.
like one out of like a billion.
Anime and manga and video game characters. I think it was like how to there's.
I actually had some of those for movement. I used to have one company did it was just nothing but poses, a book of just poses.
Yeah.
And I used to have a book of Japanese poses that, of course, these like $70 books. So I used to have 4 of them. And if you can find a book of just poses, it's nice because your characters just always there. Which for my character is actually kind of nice because their daily life, they're not going to be climbing the sides of buildings or anything like that.
On that note, there was one called the How to Draw Anime and Video Game Characters, Volume 3. It was the Expressions volume, and it was so good because that actually explained when somebody's scared, their eyes wince like this, and that's why, because the muscles are here.
What is the name of that?
Faces.
I got this book that's just about expressions, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, and I
I think
can't.
it's called Faces, hon.
Is it Make It Faces?
No,
It's a giant tome.
It's a big old tome.
Look for books on Amazon.com. Read the reviews.
Oh,
Yeah.
actually, books aside, there is a blog. There are 2 blogs I can really recommend to you. One is called The Temple of the 7 Golden Camels. It's an animator, but he really knows his stuff about visual storytelling. He will give you advice about storytelling that light years ahead of what I would. He does storyboarding for Pixar or Disney or one of those.
Nice.
The other one is Aaron Diaz just did a bunch of stuff about character design that is phenomenal.
Aaron's a great guy, and he's an amazing artist.
And he knows character design.
Yeah.
I mean, his character design stuff is really, really helpful. I would recommend anyone who wants to design characters.
And I see some pencils after that. Can you spell the name?
Is it A-A?
D-I-A-Z, Aaron Diaz.
Is it A-A-R-O-N?
A-A-R-N, yeah.
And I think the blog is called...
Dresden Kodak.
Yep, and the webpage is Indistinguishable from Magic, is the name of the blog.
Yeah.
But he's got a lot of really good stuff, particularly on character design.
Also, I know a lot of cartoons back in the 60s and 70s, what they would do is sometimes get like, I guess this is horrible, but at one point, turn of the century, a lot of mental institutions would collect photographs of their inmates.
Oh.
And a lot of cartoonists who learn expressions would get these old books and draw the expressions these people were making. Because you would get some people who had Tourette's, it's things that people didn't know how to handle into an asylum. It's callous, but it is a great way to learn.
Somewhat less creepy than that. I knew someone who played expression roulette, where they would go in another room, and then someone would be playing a movie with a lot of close-up expressions and stuff, and then from the other room they would yell, "Stop!" And then they had to come in, the other person would pause the movie, and whatever was on the screen, that was the expression that they had to draw.
He lists more books though, and I can't.
Books.
It's been so long since I've had to use them, I don't know.
Oh, you know what's actually handy to have around is just a comprehensive art history book.
Artist anatomy book. Well, there are books on artist anatomy, and that is very important.
That's a lot, and like anatomy books and like pose books, or
I don't
even
like any of those.
Well, I'm
always
just.
use...
My point is, those
I'm
things
just
are going to be a
saying.
lot better than how you draw a cartoon or a comic character, because you're not actually learning how to draw. Because you need to know anatomy first.
And you draw some eyes, and then you draw a person.
Yeah.
I will say though that the only danger with those is that if you want to have your characters have individualized body language, relying too much on those pose books can be tricky, because you'll get fairly generic poses. Not that they don't have their place, especially if you need to do feet. I mean, unless you're E.K. Weaver, feet aren't that expressive. She's just the most amazing feet.
E.K. is just amazing.
She's
in general.
ridiculous. I love her.
Yeah.
But again, anytime you can talk your friends into taking photos for you.
Honestly, also having a mirror at your desk, so for expressions, can be really nice.
Yep.
That's actually what Disney animators.
Yeah, I was
the
gonna say,
Disney
that's
did. They always had a mirror there to look at it. And actually, Joel Watson, what he'll do is he'll use Photo Booth on his Mac and screenshot.
I'll do that at work because we don't obviously have a. I'll do it on my phone. I've got the mirror function, and I'll just be sitting there at my desk going. And clients all think
Get those pictures. We have 5 minutes left.
Do we go through the hour, or is it supposed to be a 50-minute panel? I think it's usually supposed to be a 50-minute.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, otherwise,
Who knows? We have no idea.
At 8:30 in Atrium 3, Randy and I will for sure be in here. I'm not sure if
I think I'm on that.
Yeah.
Same people.
Well, sure.
We'll see.
Yeah, why
Same
not?
bad time, same
Why
bad
not?
channel.
So, what is it?
Atrium 3 at
Breaking into
8:30.
webcomics?
Breaking into webcomics. It's all about basically just getting into webcomics and things you should know and avoid and do.
Getting started can be very difficult.
It
I
can
had
be.
a really hard time with that.
Do any of you guys have tables in here that you want to promote, or you want to give people their URLs again?
I have free comics. You can grab as many as you like. I have several different ones that you can.
What's your URL?
What's your URL?
Oh, it'sinyourheadnow.com. And of course, there's no apostrophe, and I'm a proofreader by night, so I always cringe when I give people the web address. But it'sinyourheadnow.com.
Godseekercomic.com.
Somethingpositive.net.
And you can find me at festworks.com, otherwise the podcast at webcomicbeacon.com.
Thanks.
So thank you for coming. That's it.
Get in there, girl!